If you carry some weight inside you, feel trapped in some area of your life, or struggle for liberation that seems impossible, this story is for you. Because just as God heard the cry of the people of Israel, He still hears yours today. What's more, the path out, the strategies, and the miracles recorded here are principles you can apply to your journey right now. So, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any details of the story that can change your life. Let's unravel the mysteries of Book of Exodus and understand how the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob acts in the midst of the greatest difficulties. Have you ever wondered why some stories span centuries, change destinies, and still speak directly to our hearts today? Well, I tell you, few narratives in the history of humanity carry as much mystery, power, and transformative lessons as the Book of Exodus. And the most impressive thing is that, even though it is one of the best-known passages in the Bible, there are details and secrets there that most people simply never saw. Imagine an entire people, enslaved, humiliated, and without hope. Now think of a man marked by mistakes and uncertainties, being called by God Himself in the midst of Abaning Bushto, changed the course of an entire nation. It sounds like a scene from an epic film, but it is a biblical reality and more relevant than ever. In this video, we will explore everything from slavery in Egypt, the cruel decrees of the Pharaoh of Egypt, until the miracles in Egypt, a promise of liberation, and the crossing towards land flowing with milk and honey. And I guarantee you've never seen this story told like this. Get ready to understand what the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has to teach you today. So, stay with me until the end and allow yourself to dive into the story of Moses, if it were the first time. Because believe me, it could very well be the beginning of a new phase in your life. Have you ever noticed how some situations, at first, seem like a blessing, but then become a burden? That's exactly what happened with people of Israel in Egypt. The descendants of Jacob, who arrived because of the famine and were well received thanks to Joseph, began to multiply in an impressive way. From one family, they became a large people, but not everyone saw this in a good light. A new one Pharaoh of Egypt appeared, and he had no idea who Joseph was or how those blessed people had helped Egypt in past. And as happens even today, when someone grows up, there always appears someone who bothers them. The king, fearing that he would lose control, began to see the Hebrews as a threat. To solve the problem, he decreed that they would all be enslaved, forced to work from sunrise to sunset. The Hebrews built the famous cities of Pithom and Ramesses, symbols of Egyptian power, but which were built at the cost of much suffering. It was brick, clay, and straw, all by hand, without respite, without truce. And here is a precious detail: the more they oppressed, the more people of Israel grew. It's as if the pain, instead of destroying, strengthened. And if you're going through a struggle, pay attention to that. Dissatisfied, the Pharaoh of Egypt decided to go further. To contain the growth, he decreed that all Hebrew boys should be killed at birth. Imagine the despair of the families. A true massacre foretold. The objective was to weaken the people and put an end to their future generations. But then, when man tries to decree an end, that is precisely where the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob starts to act. The scenario of slavery in Egypt and suffering left deep scars, but also set the stage for the miracles in Egypt and compromise of liberation that would come soon. Because it is always like this: where there is oppression, God raises liberators. And believe me, all this tension that you feel in your life now can be the stage set for your miracle too. And this will make more sense in the next topic. When Pharaoh's cruel decree came to kill the Hebrew boys, it seemed like all was lost. But that's when God shows that even in the midst of oppression, courage can blossom in ordinary people. Shiphrah and Puah, the Hebrew midwives, were first to defy this absurd order, choosing to fear God above Pharaoh's power. These women, with an almost invisible courage, decided not to comply with the order to kill the babies. Instead, they made sure that the boys were born and survived. Imagine the risk they were taking. Disobeying Pharaoh at that time could have meant death, but their faith spoke louder. And this teaches us that sometimes we need to be brave even without the applauding crowd. When Pharaoh learned that the midwives had not done what it told them to do, he became furious and ordered that all the male children be thrown into the Nile River. This was an even crueler decree. However, what Pharaoh did not know was that God already had a much bigger plan in place, which would begin with the birth of a special baby. This moment of the midwives teaches us a practical lesson sometimes. True revolution begins with small acts of courage and faithfulness in everyday life. You may not change the whole world at once, but you can protect, care for, and act according to your faith, even if no one sees it. Have you thought about what silent courage you can take on today? And this courage will be essential for what comes next, because if you feel afraid today, know that in the midst of the greatest danger, a greater force can emerge that saves and transforms everything. And that is how we arrive at the next chapter of this incredible story, which begins with the birth of a boy named Moses. Amidst the shadow of death decreed by the Pharaoh, Moses was born, a boy who would carry on his back the mission of changing the destiny of the world. People of Israel, his mother, aware of the dangers, makes a decision that demonstrates creativity and faith. She hides the baby for 3 months, protecting it with the most valuable thing she had, her mother's love and hope. It is a reminder that sometimes our greatest strength lies in silent care. When hiding the baby was no longer possible, she placed him in a basket and delivered him to the waters of the Nile, trusting in the divine plan. Imagine the tension of that moment. It was like casting a dream into the unknown, hoping that someone would take it in. And that was exactly what happened to Pharaoh's daughter, in an unexpected act, found Moses and decided to adopt him as her son, showing that even in the most distant palace, a bond can emerge that transcends enemies. The special touch of this story comes from Miriam, Moses' sister, who wisely suggests that the boy's own mother be the one to breastfeed him. A simple and brilliant strategy that combines protection and identity. This shows that even in the most adverse situations, the solution can lie in unity and applied intelligence. Moses grew up in the Pharaoh's palace, surrounded by luxury and power, but with his Hebrew identity engraved in his heart. He lived between two worlds, one of oppression and one of wealth, which made his story even richer and more complex. For those who feel torn between expectations and truth, Moses is an example that it is possible to carry within oneself the strength of one's origins, even in the midst of the unknown. This early life teaches us that even when it seems like all hope has been thrown into the river, God uses the unlikely to fulfill his promises. And Moses' journey is just beginning. What follows reveals how an ordinary man can be called to an extraordinary purpose. As an adult, Moses carries a restlessness that comes from his soul, a mixture of divided identity and dormant justice. One day, when he sees an Egyptian mistreating a Hebrew, he does not hesitate and ends up killing the aggressor. This impulsive act, although full of courage, shows that even great leaders have their flaws and moments of confusion, a reminder to all of us that acting in the heat of the moment can have consequences. When Pharaoh discovers what has happened, Moses becomes a fugitive, leaving behind everything he knew to seek refuge in the Midian desert. This escape, though it may seem like a failure, is actually a crucial turning point. Life often forces us to leave our comfort zones so that we can grow and prepare for a greater calling. In the desert, Moses shows another side of himself. He protects the daughters of Jethro, a local priest, who are being threatened. This simple but courageous action is a clear sign that Moses is still a man of justice and compassion, even far from home. Sometimes, it is our silent actions in exile that define who we truly are. Jethro takes him in, and Moses finds stability by marrying Zipporah and becoming a shepherd. This new routine, away from the hustle and bustle of Egypt, is the perfect training ground for patience and humble leadership. Like Moses, you can find lives pauses to strengthen you and prepare you for greater challenges. This period shows that even when we run away, there is a purpose behind the preparation for something great. And for Moses, this preparation is about to reach a turning point that will change not only his life, but the history of the world. People of Israel, in the silence of the Midian desert, something extraordinary happens. Moses sees a burning bush that, despite burning, is not consumed, an image that still draws attention today. It is there, in that humble setting, that God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob reveals itself to him, showing that the manifestation of the divine can happen in the most unexpected places in life. God orders Moses to take off his sandals, because the place he is standing on is holy. This detail teaches us something profound. To hear the true call, we must respect the moment and recognize the sacred in the little things around us. We cannot move towards liberation without reverence and humility. So the Lord presents himself as the I am that I am, a name full of mystery and power, which reveals his eternity and constant presence. Moses receives a mission to free the people of Israel in slavery in Egypt. For God heard the cry of the people and decided to act. It is an invitation to participate in a greater purpose that transcends life itself. This encounter with a burning bush shows us that God's call can be surprising and even challenging. Often in real life, the invitation to change comes with signs that seem out of the ordinary, requiring courage and faith to respond. And if you feel like something is burning inside you, maybe it's time to listen. From that moment on, Moses knows that he can no longer turn back. The promise of liberation and the journey towards land flowing with milk and honey begin there, in the fire that does not consume. And this story is far from over because the next phase brings miracles and signs that defy the impossible. Even when faced with the divine call, Moses hesitates. Who has never doubted their own ability when the challenge seemed too great? He says he doesn't know how to speak well. He is afraid and insecure, just like we are when we need to take an important step in life. But God patiently assures him that he will be with him at every moment, showing that the secret lies in presence, not in perfection. Furthermore, God reveals his sacred name, I am who I am. This statement is a powerful promise that he is eternal, unchanging, and faithful to his covenant with the people of Israel. Knowing that the one who calls us is a God of promise gives us the strength to face whatever comes, even the most difficult obstacles of life, slavery in Egypt. To strengthen Moses, God gives him miraculous signs to prove that he is in control. The staff that turns into a serpent, the hand that becomes leprous and is then healed, and the water of the Nile that turns into blood. These are symbols of divine authority that will confront the power of the Pharaoh of Egypt. These signs show that for God nothing is impossible, and no earthly power can resist his will. These miracles also serve for Moses and Aaron to convince the people and Pharaoh himself that the liberation of people of Israelis is inevitable. They were not alone in this mission. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was working through them, bringing hope even in the midst of darkness. If you are in a fight that seems impossible, remember that just as Moses received signs and strength of mission, you too can find unexpected resources to face your battles. The journey towards land flowing with milk and honey is full of evidence, but also of power and promise. Even with the signs and the promise of God, Moses still feels a weight on his heart. He insists that he is not a good speaker, that his speech does not convince. Who has never felt that insecurity, the fear of not being capable? God understands these doubts, but he also shows that it is not our ability that performs a miracle, it is obedience and trust in him. To ensure that the mission does not falter, God chooses Aaron, Moses' brother, to be his voice. Aaron will be the spokesperson, the one who speaks on Moses' behalf, and together they form an unbeatable duo. This reminds us that in great challenges, we rarely walk alone. Having someone support us, to complement our weaknesses, makes all the difference. This partnership between siblings also symbolizes the power of unity and the support of family or friends on the journey. Have you ever considered that sometimes asking for help or accepting someone else to take on an important role can be the key to achieving your goals? Furthermore, Moses begins to focus his strength on the signs God gave him, knowing that Aaron will speak for him. Life often teaches us to delegate and trust, instead of carrying the weight of everything alone, an essential step for those who want to transform their surroundings. And so, with Moses and Aaron side by side, prepared and strengthened, the mission of liberation of the people of Israel remains firm. But before this journey can move forward, an unusual and very important experience awaits them, and it goes beyond what many imagine. As Moses and Aaron begin their mission to Egypt, something unexpected happens. God tries to take Moses' life. It may seem strange, but the reason is serious. Moses had not circumcised his son, a fundamental sign of the covenant between God and the people of Israel. This reminds us that obeying spiritual foundations is essential before leading any transformation. Moses' wife Zipporah acts quickly and performs the circumcision, saving his life. This simple but meaningful gesture shows the importance of faithfulness to God, covenant with God, and how small details can have big consequences in the journey of faith and leadership. This episode is an invitation to reflect on our spiritual commitments and how they impact our journey. Often, the struggles we face have roots in areas we've ignored or neglected, and the call to obedience is the path to true liberation. It is also clear that the mission that God gives is not only external, but involves an internal alignment. One must be spiritually prepared to lead a people who live in slavery and suffering. This reinforces that the journey towards land flowing with milk and honey requires integrity and commitment. And so, with the sign of the covenant restored, Moses and Aaron continue together to find the people of Israel and begin the mission that would forever change the history of Egypt and Israel. In the middle of the desert, guided by the voice of God, Moses and Aaron finally meet. It is a moment of emotion and renewed purpose, where brothers who have walked different paths now come together for a greater mission. This reunion shows that, even with differences, unity is essential to achieve great things. They hug each other, strengthening not only their friendship, but the confidence that, together, they are capable of facing the Pharaoh of Egypt and lead the people of Israel towards liberation. This scene reinforces that great changes happen when people unite for a common goal, a reminder to value your partnerships and support. With their mission clear, the two brothers begin to plan how to carry out their divine calling, ready to face the challenges that lie ahead, including the famous ones, miracles in Egypt that would shake an entire nation. This preparation is vital because all leadership requires strategy and courage. This reunion also symbolizes the importance of trusting in those God places by our side to walk through life. No one is called to face battles alone, and recognizing this is a step of humility and wisdom. Now that Moses and Aaron are aligned, the next chapter of history is about to unfold, bringing powerful signs and the promise of the long-awaited deliverance of people of Israel. Now that you've delved into this powerful story of book of Exodus and understood how the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacobus Moses to free the people of Israel in slavery in Egypt, I invite you to reflect what in your life needs to be freed today. Where do you feel stuck and need the miracle of transformation? Think about the burning bushes God may be placing in your path, signs that a greater calling is waiting for you. It's time to hear that call, trust in the power of the promise, and act in faith, even when the path seems difficult. Did you like what you saw here? Then don't put it off. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications and share this video with anyone you know who needs to hear this message. Let's build a community together that is strengthened by faith, courage, and search for true liberation. Remember, the story of Book of Exodus is an invitation for you to not just watch, but to act. May this journey be the beginning of your own journey towards land flowing with milk and honey, a life of purpose, freedom, and abundance.